Hey guys, and welcome to Joe TV. You may recognize the guy to my side, but I'm going to list his credentials just in case you don't. He performs the theme to Phineas and Ferb. He is the voice of Chuck E. Cheese. He's also the creator of multiple podcasts, and most notably, the lead singer of Bowling for Soup with hits like 1985 and Girl All the Bad Guys Want. Welcome to Joe TV, Jaret Reddick. Jaret, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Thanks for joining us. So, how did you originally get into music?
Well, getting into music is a pretty well-documented thing for me. It's the simplest of all things. You know, I grew up with parents who are literally right out of the movie National Lampoon's Vacation. They sang and harmonized in the front seat of the car while my brother and I, in the back seat of the car, suffered through it. Or got involved. So you kind of had to make a decision as to whether or not you were going to take that third part harmony on the Eagles songs, or you were going to try and sleep. And so, just being around that all the time, I was always really into music, but, really didn't have that much of a drive to play. And then in sixth grade, after when you finished your math test every Friday, you got free time, and the Walkman had just come out. And so a kid named Greg Norman brought his Walkman to school, and I was just listening to certain things on there, and he was playing me stuff, and he had it was just random stuff. It was like little tidbits from the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High and things like that but then this song called Crazy Train came on, and I just hear this, all aboard! And I was like, what is this that I'm hearing? And he's like, that's Ozzy Osbourne. And I was like, are you kidding me? I think I'm terrified of that guy. Like, I'm not really even sure that, I'm pretty sure he worships the devil and all this stuff, and this is, again, this is in the mid 80s. And so, Ozzy had more of a reputation, I think, than he did fans at the time, and so, man, I was 100% hooked. I just couldn't stop listening to it, and I just decided that day, I'm like, I'm gonna be a musician. And it wasn't long after that, maybe even the next week or so, where I discovered Motley Crue and Rat and all of this hair metal and just these bigger than life characters that you could buy these magazines and see them, and I always equate hair metal bands to our rap bands of today, with the cars and the money and the girls and so, yeah, I mean, I was hooked at that point, at the age of 13. And so I asked for a drum set. My dad laughed at me, but I got one. And, the rest, as they say, is history. That's kind of how I got into it. How I stayed with it is another epic tale.
So tell us about the formation of Bowling for Soup. How did that happen? Was it organic? Did you go searching for band members yourself? How did that happen?
Really organic. We were all playing in various bands in a small town in Texas called Wichita Falls. And Chris, the guitar player for Bowling for Soup, actually ran this coffee shop that was it had kind of started out as this branch sort of youth center for his church, but he started booking bands in there. And so my band played there that I was in, and Eric's band played there, and Eric was actually in a band with Chris at the time. Our original drummer Lance played in bands with both those guys. So it's very incestuous as far as they were concerned. They all kind of played in bands together. I didn't. I was kind of had been doing the music thing, I think, a little bit longer, at least taking it serious a little bit longer, as far as, being in a local band and playing shows and stuff. And so I really wasn't in their circle, so to speak. But Lance and I had been best friends since we were 4 years old. And so, music wasn't something we connected on. We were just really good friends. And so, yeah, I put the band together just knowing them from that. And, it became just something that to keep us out of trouble, keep us busy. We didn't really have any, it wasn't like, let's start a band and go make it. It was more of like, let's start a band so that we, aren't bored.
Well, let's talk about the dirty secret on the way to stardom, the grind, the tours, the promotion, all the things that a band starting up has to do. Go into detail if you can on what that is like for folks on Talent Joe that are looking for the ways to stardom.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that it's an ever-changing thing. And if you were to ask me, what someone should do or how I did it, it's completely different. And here's the thing, it's something that's ever evolving. So it changes every couple of years. And there are those of us who choose to try to ride the wave and change with it and learn these new technologies and learn these new ways of reaching fans and all of that. But briefly, there was really no internet when Bowling for Soup started. I mean, I was still managing the band and I was booking shows on payphones, from the van, and we just stayed gone, played to nobody and played to, whoever would listen. Things have changed a lot in that, the whole idea of getting in the van and going out there and pounding the pavement, you can still do that. It's just not, that sort of metaphor of getting in the van is different now. I mean, we actually used to get in the van and just go and try to find places to play while we were out there. And, there's just not the places there's not a business model like that. There's not, places that are just open going, man, I hope a band comes in this week and wants to play. It's just not how things work. Secondly, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. Most importantly, we didn't have social media. And so, now with live performances have to be something that is promoted in such a way that really, it takes a lot of planning. Whereas used to, it was very much, fly by the seat of your pants, go pass out flyers 2 days before the show and, hit all the places where there's people, where the people are. So, this day and age, it's actually more about building social media, building an online awareness than it is going to, Poughkeepsie, New York and playing a show at a coffee house. It's just not the way that things work anymore. And, I manage a band called Not Your Girlfriends, and they're doing really, really well. And they're young, so they're antsy. They want to play, they want to tour. And it's hard sometimes to put those brakes on and be like, well, why don't you put that energy that you would put into touring and all that into creating content for the internet? Because this day and age, it is all about content. It is all about keeping these very, very short attention spans fed. And I have a hard time doing it. I'm almost 47 years old. I've had to change through doing cassettes to doing CDs to doing nothing to now I'm doing vinyl again, which is like, I don't even think I've ever owned like an actual record player. Like, and now I'm, it's just something new every day and a new kind of social media and a new this. So, it's a matter of keeping up. But again, as you said, to go back to your question, it's all about the grind. The grind is just ever changing, and the dinosaurs like me, I guess I'm either a dinosaur or I'm a patriot or whatever, I don't know what I am, but like the dudes who like me, who went up there and did it and who still do it, it's a lot of work. I mean, social media is a full-time job. And the thing is that I think musicians especially have a hard time accepting that, because in the 80s, you could just be a musician and you could just go and you could play your guitar and you'd figure it out. And some people would take up and you'd get a manager and this would happen. And your job was to show up at the show. And unfortunately, it's just not enough anymore. And so you have to be a people person. You have to be an educated social media person. You have to be outgoing. I just don't know that we're ever going to have famous introverts anymore. Like I don't know how that could ever be a thing. You're not going to have, I just don't know how you'd ever have another Kurt Cobain at this point, because unless he just has the greatest team around him, that can literally take a picture of his breakfast for him and put it on Instagram, because that's an important thing. People want to know what you had for breakfast. So yeah, again, the grind is the grind. It is what it is. It's a full-time job. And what I tell people all the time, like, when you turn 18 and you're moving out of your parents' house and, it's you got to go get a job because you got to pay rent. And it's like, well, how do I do music full time? I'm like, well, you do music full time. You get a job, Then when it's time to go out on the road, you quit that job and you come back, you get another one, or you find a boss that's going to let you do it. It's like, you just kind of can't half do this. And to back up too, I think it's important also for me to always get across that you should do this to be in this business or do this because it makes you happy, not to make it, because really there's so many different definitions of the term make it. Like, to me, if you can play music every weekend and that makes you happy, you made it. I mean, there's tribute bands around here that are playing all over the world or whatever. They're playing other people's stuff. And it's just like, man, they made it, they're doing what they love and all of that. So, just because I did this or I did this doesn't mean that should be anybody else's measure of what it is, So I just always say, if you could somehow figure it out to make a living doing what you love to do, you did it. And, so I think it's important to put realistic goals, both short-term and long-term, on a piece of paper and work and do that. And if you don't make those short-term goals, you back up, you reassess, and you go again, until you're tired.
So there are probably two major things that a band starting up just dreams about. Mm-hmm. Number one, being signed. Number two, actually hearing their music on the radio, I guess nowadays on Spotify or any other channel. Please go into how that experience was for you and the other guys from Bowling for Soup.
Yeah, so I mean, and this is another ever-changing thing where it's like, we want a record deal, we want this and this. Labels definitely have a place in this world. I'm not a hater. I'm not a jaded person. I've been on a major label. I have 19 albums and 7 of them. Wait, hold on. 1, 2, 4, 5. I don't know, 8 or 9 of them were on a major label, and it was a great experience. It was a different experience. Getting signed again back then. I got signed off of a fax. If you can believe that. We were playing a music conference down in Atlanta, and we sent faxes to some people we got on a local radio. So local, but I mean a big radio station here in Dallas called The Edge, and we were charting here. And so, yeah, I mean, it's weird because radio play is such an interesting goal these days, because really, I don't really know how much longer it's going to be around, and nobody can predict that. I mean, people say that radio stations are still making money and they're still doing this, but if you talk to someone in radio, they're like, we're not making any money. And so I don't really know. But as you mentioned, now there's all these other platforms like Spotify, and there's, this, that. So I think basically what and again, I'll use Not Your Girlfriend as an example. Again, they're 14 and 12 years old, and there's some label interest, but we're in a situation that's pretty interesting that their parents are still willing to invest in the band, so we can make videos, we can make music, we can be on social media, we can tour, we can do all of those things without the help of the label, which those are those things that the label can really help with. It's money, and with media and with those things. So if you're in a situation where you can accomplish those things by yourself, maybe you don't need a label, because streaming sites and video sites and things like that are becoming more and more artist friendly. And in the next 2 years will be even more artist friendly. And as an example, Bowling for Soup, we sold 2.6 million records, I believe, while we were on Jive. That's a rough guess. We never received a record royalty ever, because the way that labels work is everything they pay for, you have to pay back, but you also owe them for the making of the album. You also owe them for what they're spending on their publicists and whatever. So I used to call it monopoly money. I'm like, if they give it to us, we're going to spend it. If it's out there, we'll take it and we'll spend it. And people are like, well, what about, you're going to be in debt? Well, not really in debt if you don't sell any records, or as many records as you don't have to pay it back if they drop you, is the thing. So these things like these streaming sites or whatever. So again, we never received a record royalty ever from all this. Now, will we eventually? Yes, we will eventually recoup all of that. And that, even if it's 10 years down the road, it's not a matter of if, it's when. But now Bowling for Soup, with Spotify being so big on Spotify and on YouTube and like all of these other things, like we actually get checks now for this music that we've put out over the years. And it's interesting because it's just like it's found money for us. And so if you're in this generation where, you know, you can just content, as long as you can get people to go through the toll booth every day and stream that stuff and watch those videos and stuff, you know, that again, market yourself, you're going to get a paycheck. So again, do you need a record label? A lot of people do, especially solo artists probably do in some capacity. But sometimes that record label is something you do with your management or whatever. So, you know, again, so what I was going to say is that with Not Your Girlfriends, a big thing that we're trying to decide is if we even want to go down that road, because we're already getting the streams. We're already getting tours. You know, we're already getting a lot of these things again, so my advice as far as people and goals and stuff is you hire someone when it's time to hire someone. So you don't just start out and before you've played your first show, go, I need to go get a manager. You need to go out there, you hit the plate, you hit the open mic nights, you hit whatever it is, talent competitions, however it is you're going to get your, and then when it gets to a point where you need help in that stuff, you get a manager. Then you kind of keep going. When it's time to get a booking agent, you go get a booking agent, but really you don't really need a booking agent if you're as busy as you can make yourself anyway. And the same goes for an attorney and on and on and on. So that's where the label sort of sits. Is in that same sort of, there's all these little jumps to where it's like, okay, once I build up to this point, all right, I need to look at this or I need to look at this. And there's not really an all-in-one, you know, stop for that. And again, if there were, I would be very, very weary of it because I feel like that would be a very, very big overpromise from someone to say, I'm going to manage you, book you, and put your stuff out. You just be like, you know, I don't know. That seems like a lot. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, our experience on Jive Records was great. You know, we were the little fish in a really big pond. We were kind of an experiment with being a pop punk band on a label with Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. NSYNC, that I think when our second record was about to come out, set the record for the most albums ever sold in one day. And I mean, it was just nuts. And, you know, I think it was like 11 million records the day it came out or something, which is now nobody sells 11 million records over a whole album cycle anymore. So again, it's an ever changing thing. And, you know, but again, you know, the going back to the whole main point of like everything that I say, I'll always bring back to just content, you know, whether or not it's, you know, an acoustic version of a song that you just released a month ago, keep people's attention.
So after all the shows, all the hits, how surreal is it for you and the guys to have your 25th anniversary show coming up?
You know, it's pretty weird. It's one of those things where I have a kid now that's driving. I have 2 kids in braces. You know, all my kids are in school now. You know, my youngest has started kindergarten. It's strange. It's like those things, you know, so the band is sort of the same thing. It's like, I can't believe we're 25. You know, we've been in this thing, you know, more than half of our lives. We've been in Bowling for Soup, all of us. And so, you know, it's, as you say, it's surreal. It's, you know, we're very lucky. I think our genre is one that I think will be around forever. You know, again, I'll throw back to hair metal again. I think pop punk and those of us who, whether or not we're pop punk or not, whether we lean more towards the side of pop or the side of punk or whatever that label is going to be, that kind of music is always going to have a home somewhere, just like hair metal or grunge, pop punk, you know, but it's just always going to be around. Like we managed to fit into this little thing that's a thing and it exists. And it's, you know, it's around this. The music fans are the solar system, and all of these little kinds of music are planets. And, you know, we happen to have landed on the right one. And so, and luckily for us, the age of the pop punk fan is, you know, still fairly young as far as, you know, how old music fans are these days. So again, streaming is huge for us and for all of our friends. I mean, Newfound Glory, Simple Plan, like we all do insane numbers, bands way bigger than us that, you know, sell out places 4 times the size of the places that we play don't have 10% of the streaming numbers. So, it's we're in a good spot, and we're still having a great time, and we're trying to be smart, and moving into this whole streaming world is big for us. Like, I think we're not even going to do a new record. We're about to just start releasing material just as it comes. Just, here's a song, here's a video, here's a song, here's a video, here's a song, and going to try that out and see how it works. Not a lot of people have tried that yet, and so feel like we'll just again, we're back to the whole pioneer thing.
So how did you begin to get into voiceover work? Again, you do the theme song with the guys for Phineas and Ferb. You since 2012, I believe, have been the voice of Chuck E. Cheese. If you wouldn't mind, get into that transition.
Yeah, man, it was great. So I was an actor as a kid. I was an actor all through high school, and in fact was going to go to college to be an actor. I decided last minute, I was like, I don't know, what am I going to do with the degree in acting? And I definitely didn't want to teach. And so I went for business and psychology instead. And, so I, getting into once I started to get into the music thing, it's the performance aspect of being in front of people has always been a big part of our show. So if you come see Bowling for Soup, a big part of our show is also, some people call it stand-up comedy. There's a lot of improv that goes on. You never see the same show 2 times ever. And, I love it. I love that aspect of it. So I actually got into improv comedy here locally and was doing that. But so that's Chucky. So Phineas and Ferb happened first. Man, I was very lucky to have 2 guys creating a show that loved my band the way that I understand it. They were both working on The Simpsons. And in the Simpsons writer room, they played a lot of Bowling for Soup. When I met Dan and Swampy for the first time for Phineas and Ferb, Dan had all of his albums for me to autograph. And it was just, it's crazy. I'm at this meeting at Disney, and, I had done a lot of them before this. I'd already done Jimmy Neutron and a lot of other things, but I had been told no, or told, or, hey, this is going to be huge. I didn't get picked up. I had been through that thing so many times in doing a song or whatever it was. So I met with them on the Disney, and I got to see Phineas and Ferb, and it's very infant stages. In fact, some of the scenes weren't even ready. So like you'd be watching an episode and it would just go to black and white drawing and hold its place there. But the talking was all there. I fell in love with the guys. I fell in love with the show. I was just like, I want to be a part of this. And, while I'm there, they just said, hey, do you also want to read for a part? And I said, I do. And so I actually read for the drummer for a band called Love Handle that they have on the show, but I ended up getting cast as Danny. So I got way more lines, and I also became the singer of the band Love Handle. So any of the songs that that they've written for him or that I've gotten to co-write over the years, I also get to perform it. So, but yeah, like you said, they got me to do the theme song. They wanted me to rewrite that theme song into a long version that they could do like a full-on music video over. So I did that, and was on the show all 9 years, and it was just a true blessing. And but yeah, then a few years after that, I was doing improv comedy here in Dallas, and my troupe was kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway kind of stuff. It was more like games and less like long form improv. Very like, laugh, 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 big laugh, switch kind of thing. And a guy who had seen me do improv and who I had seen do improv as well worked for the advertising agency that got the new Chuck E. Cheese account. And they were like, we want a guy with a flexible voice that can sing, and somebody that can be funny. And I got this call from a middleman, a friend of ours. I never even spoke to the guy. I hooked him up with my manager, and I went in to start reading for Chuck E. Cheese, and I thought I was auditioning, and I was actually cutting the first commercials. I hadn't even signed a contract yet or anything. So, definitely, I hate to say the term landed in my lap, because I did work to make those connections or whatever. But, I mean, it wasn't something that I sought after, and it definitely a dream come true. I mean, and super nostalgic for me because I'm right in the sweet spot of Chuck E. Cheese. It's like the Wichita Falls had Showbiz Pizza, and my grandmother lived in Lawton, Oklahoma, and they had Chuck E. Cheese. So I had the best of both worlds. And, and my kids were little when I first got that gig. And so they were already, kind of me being the 1985 guy and the Phineas and Ferb guy was already kind of old hat. Then I become Chuck E. Cheese. And, I get every once in a while I get a little boost of cool for my kiddos.
So for our audience, if you've not heard Jaret's podcast, Jaret Goes to the Movies, it's fall on the floor hilarious. Sweet Cheeks, The Gang, upcoming is the Wonder Woman review last time around, but the current one is Gladiator. Mm-hmm. Do you think that your love for movies and that original intent to go into acting and theater, do you think that sparked that podcast?
The podcast is a really cool story, and I want to give shout out to my other one too. Me and Gary from Bowling for Soup do one now called the Rockstar Dad Show, and if you're a dad or you're a parent or you're if you're just into hearing stories and things like that, go check that out because we usually have a different rock star, and rock star in quotes. Sometimes we have actors or just great dads, but this week we have Travis from We the Kings on, so go check that out. But Jaret Goes to the Movies is an interesting thing. I was doing a Bowling for Soup podcast, and I was really bad about it. I would do one like every 6 months, and my following was crazy because I got into it really early. And had I done that and done it, and really stayed true to it, done it every week and every week, I would probably be Joe Rogan now, but I didn't do that. I really didn't have any sort of sense of how huge the medium would be. So a friend of my wife's dad, who is, by the way, my wife's way younger than me, so her dad is my age. So basically it's just this dude. His name is Rich. And I met him at a Halloween party, and he was like, dude, you should do a podcast. And I'm like, I already do a podcast. And he went and listened to it. And he goes, no, you need to do a podcast, like legitimate, like you need to like have a topic and go in there and just riff and just be yourself and people will love it. And I'm like, I don't know, I kind of already do one and yada yada. But he came to me and he was adamant. He's like, you should do one. You need to do one about movies. And I go, okay, well, if I do it, you got to be on it with me. And he's just like, no, I'm not talking about me. You need to do this. And that was 3 years ago. And the evolution of Jaret Goes to the Movies, we're 170 something movies in now. Rich is still with me. My wife has been on the show most of the time. Now we've got, as you said, Sweet Cheeks and Silent Sean. And, it's really more like a morning show broadcast than it is a movie podcast. Cause you get little insight into all of our lives, and whether it's Rich's dating life or me and Casey with the kids or Sweet Cheeks' dating life these days is awesome. And then Sean, when he chooses to talk, whatever he's got going on. But then, yeah, we take a movie and we just dissect it. And really we do something that's way different than anybody else has ever done. We essentially take you through the movie chronologically. So we have around between 13 and 15 clips every week from the movie that take you through it. And so we play the clip, we talk about it, going on to the next clip. So sometimes we're making fun of it. Sometimes we're trying to see the message in it. You just kind of never know where it's going to go. And Rich and I have an interesting dynamic. We're completely opposite people. I mean, we love each other, but we're not friends outside of the show. And we learned really quickly that we can't hang out because he's very, very right wing and I'm very don't care about politics and, kind of thing. I just like people. So like that's what starts the argument. But yeah, we have a great dynamic. And so I do have to give a lot of credit to Rich for dragging me into this podcast world. And, now again, I've got that one. I've got the BFS fan page Rampage that comes out once a month. Me and Gary do Rockstar Dad Show, which is on Adobe Radio online twice a week. And our podcast comes out every single week. So never a dull moment, man. And that doesn't even include all of the music stuff that I have going on right now. So, but I really enjoy the podcast thing. I like the format. I like the free form aspect of it. I always wanted to be on radio. But my personality, as you can tell from this interview, I really like to talk and I like the sound of my own voice. So I would have to have done a morning show. And so I don't want to get up that early. So my idea was always to do something called the morning after show. And we start at like 11. Maybe someday.
So, I think you and I know if that were to be an opportunity, we have some guys we can talk to, actually one in general. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now let's play Pick Jaret's Brain. So I'm going to play Dr. Zach, and we're going to do a little bit of word association. So I'm going to give a word, and I want you to give the first word that comes into your mind. Okay. So first word, movie.
Podcast.
Podcast.
Oh, movie.
And I swear those two are back to back. Fame.
Tired.
Music.
Therapy.
Family.
First.
Texas.
Best.
Voice.
Actor.
Greatest.
Day.
Band.
Camp. I don't know on that one.
Just a couple more. Radio.
Head.
And last one, this should be a softball. Pizza.
Chuck E. Cheese.
There you go. So, just trying to get a plug in.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting to the end of the interview, and we talked about at the beginning of the interview the helpful tips to the talent within our audience, or anybody who's looking to create a profile on the side or just to get their name out in general. So in closing, what would you like to say to the audience, folks that are just looking to take that major step and looking for stardom, looking to get discovered?
Yeah, again, first of all, do what you love. Surround yourself with people that you really want to be around. Bands ask me all the time, but this goes over to all aspects of just entertainment in this industry. What's your best advice? My best advice is to be with people that you get along with, that you like to hear talk, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. Their opinions become your opinions, whether you like it or not. And so, it's important to surround yourself with good people, or at least people that you think are good. And then I would say, just do your homework on social media, and most importantly, practice your craft. I mean, the one thing about Bowling for Soup, that our friends know, but maybe fans don't really, fans I think do, but I think if you just ask like Joe Schmo on the street, the 1985 band Bowling for Soup, what are your thoughts on them? They'd be like, they're funny and, blah, blah, blah. But, we actually really work hard to be good at what we do. And part of our delivery is making it look like we don't care, making it look easy. That's part of our presentation. But a lot of work and a lot of practice went into making this band. And, we put in the hours, and that's just it. It's almost like this. One example that I like to use is if you're opening up a restaurant, when you open up that restaurant and you come in and people come in, and the first day you're like, sorry, our menus aren't printed yet, but here's what we've got. And then they start asking questions, and then they're out of this, and then the food isn't very good and the service sucks or whatever. People don't come back to restaurants like that. And so you have to think about yourself as being something like that, as providing entertainment, providing a service, whatever it is you do. And, most of my experiences in music, quite frankly, you get as many chances as you want to influence somebody if you're good. But if you're not good, chances are those people that see that, are never going to think you're good. And also they're never coming to see you again. So just make sure that you always put your best foot forward, and whatever that is. Again, I mean, and also capitalize on your strengths. If you're not that great of a singer, but you're an amazing guitar player, then maybe you need to be a guitar player, and while you're working on being a singer. It's funny, I'll give you an example of how that works. It's a band from Tulsa, Oklahoma called the Midwest Kings. And their guitar player was just their guitar player. They played a bunch of shows. They were showcasing for labels or whatever. A guy on a whim just decides, man, you know what? I'm going to go try out for American Idol. His friends backed him up. He went out there, whatever. He freaking won. It was David Cook. David Cook was the guitar player for the Midwest Kings, and went and not only won, like slayed American Idol. And you just again putting your best foot forward, and probably while he was working on that. So, that's a lot of advice. It's a lot to take in, and I don't pretend to know everything, but I do know that that if you do what you love, you have a better chance to be a happy person.
And lastly, where all, and this might take a while to answer because of everything you have going on, but where all can our audience find you?
Man, there's a bunch of stuff happening. I have a new album coming out with Kelly Ogden from the Dolly Rots. It's called Jaret and Kelly Sitting in a Tree. I'm super proud of it. Our new video will be out soon. Bowling for Soup, new music starts in June, and we'll have new music every month for a year. After that, 25th anniversary of Bowling for Soup coming up, so come see that. We will be on tour this summer with Real Big Fish. We will be at Warped Tour this summer in Atlantic City. We're going to be at Reading and Leeds Festival in the United Kingdom. What else do we have? Oh, my band Jerichos. If you're into comedy, we have new stuff coming out as well. So go check that out. And Rockstar Dad Show, Jerichos the Movies. Follow me on socials, JARET2113 for all of it. And I think that's it. There's probably something else, but also the pizza at Chuck E. Cheese is delicious. And the little legend where they recook it is BS. I've watched them do it. It's really good.
Right. All right, guys. That's all for Joe TV. Jaret, thank you very much. Guys, go see Jaret, Bowling for Soup on tour. Download all the podcasts. You heard it right from the source. So for Jaret Reddick, this is Zach King with Joe TV saying, we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Jaret, thank you very much.
Thank you.